Hi, everybody. I am Allison Landsberg. As Chantel said, I am the Associate Director for Gemstone, and I'm really happy to be here this evening to get to tell you a little bit about Gemstone and answer questions that you have about the program. And as Chantel said, I'm joined by a few current Gemstone students. And so after I show a few slides to just introduce you to the program, then I'll ask our 3 student ambassadors to introduce themselves and share just very briefly. They can share what their Gemstone research team is studying, and this can kind of give you a taste of what some of our teams are doing. But before we get into that, I will just share a little bit about the program to you. So what is Gemstone? Gemstone is a multidisciplinary research program, and it's 4 years long, so it runs all of your undergrad time here. And we have between 400 and 500 students from majors, from all different types of majors. And what it really is it's at its core, it's a research program and it's focused on team research. And so our students come up with research ideas. They form research teams that are usually between 8 to 12 students. And then under the mentorship of a faculty mentor, they conduct research over their 3 years after they form it at the end of their first year here. And they are answering a whole wide variety of topics and questions, and they're conducting significant research that's answering some of society's most urgent questions. And then along with that, we have a curriculum that runs to introduce the students to what is research, help them form their research teams and get going on their research. And then they continue on doing research credits then beyond their sophomore year with their faculty mentor. And then something else that's very important to Gemstone is providing opportunities for leadership and mentorship. And so we have a very vibrant community. Because we run all 4 years, I think that makes the community even stronger. And so there's lots of opportunities to get involved as well. And so we'll talk a little bit about that too. As I mentioned, we have students from all different types of majors. And what that means is we get quite a variety of topics that the teams are researching. So this slide just kind of highlights what some of our current Gemstone teams are doing. So currently, one of our Gemstone teams is monitoring beehive health, and they're using neuromorphic hardware and software vision. And we have a team that is finding efficient ways to deal with space junk. So obviously that is a problem because it can cause issues for satellites and space vehicles. And so they're trying to find ways to deal with that. We have another team that's looking at algorithmic bias in online hiring, comparing historically Black colleges and universities compared to non-HBCUs. Let's see, another team is evaluating which combination of Maryland native plants in an indoor green wall is the most effective for filtering gray water. Another team is looking at how UAVs can gather data on embers in order to help treat and stop the spread of wildfires. We also have a team that's looking at researching ways to improve prosthetics. We have a team that are investigating sources and prevention in terms of microplastic pollution. And this is just a small bite because we have many more teams than this and just as much diversity in topics that span a bunch of different disciplines, and many are interdisciplinary. So it's very exciting, and there's lots of room for cool projects within Gemstone. And as I mentioned, we have curriculum that is there to get you started on your path and really set you up for success with team research. So in your first year, it's really about introducing you to Gemstone, introducing you to what research looks like at an R1 university, and really helping you through the team formation process. And so then in the second semester of your first year, the students will pitch different research topics, and they will form those research teams, and then they'll be matched with a faculty mentor. So then going into their second year, you have your faculty mentor, and what you'll really be learning about in your first class of your second year is thinking about research design and methods. How can you really set your project up for success? The students will write a thesis proposal, and that will then be defended in their second semester of their second year. And then they'll be good to go full speed ahead on starting to conduct their research. Then in their third year, that's when the bulk of data collection is going to be going on, and collecting preliminary results, and maybe starting in on some analyses. And then the fourth year is really about finishing up your data collection and doing your analyses, and then the teams defend their thesis and publish their final results. So there are 18 credits within Gemstone that are required for curriculum, and some do overlap with general education requirements in those early classes. And then in the later years, those are those research seminar classes that you're taking with your faculty mentor. As I said before, another really important part of Gemstone is leadership and student engagement. And so we have a student organization, the Gemstone Leadership Council, that really is spearheading lots of the engagement events that happen within Gemstone. And so we have the leadership of GLC that kind of does overarching events and outreach for the students as a whole. And then within GLC, we have different committees that focus on different types of engagement and leadership opportunities. So for example, one of the committees is helping to plan GEMS Camp. And what that is that when the students come in for their first year, there's an opportunity to go to camp for a couple of days, which is a really fun way to get to know your cohort, get to interact with some of the older Gemstone students, and really set yourself up for a fun first semester. So one of the committees is working to plan that, as well as thinking about what other important things are there to happen during that first year that will really set everyone up for success and for having a really fun first year experience. We also have a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee that will run different trainings for some of our teaching assistants, for example, as well as put on different events for the broader Gemstone cohort. We have a peer mentorship program, as well as an alumni mentor and partner program where students are partnered with a Gemstone alumni for mentorship. We also have steering committees that are there to help with the planning and execution of our Gemstone classes. So our GEMS 100, which is the first course that students take when they come in their first year. And then also our team formation classes, which are second semester, first year, and then first semester, sophomore year. So there's lots of different ways to get involved depending on what types of things that you're interested in. And it's just a very supportive, vibrant community. And I know that our student ambassadors who are on the call will be able to answer questions about that too, if you have them. And then as far as our alumni, where do they go after they're done with Gemstone? And the answer is it's kind of all over. There's people in professional schools, grad schools, medical schools, law schools, and then also plenty enter the workforce. We have people at Apple, Deloitte, Amazon, Capital One, kind of all over the place. And so we have a very vibrant alumni community, as I mentioned, with the alumni partnership program. And so that can really be a great connections for our students who are then graduating and moving on to something new. You know, that community there is there to support our Gemstone as well. And that is all I have from me. So I will stop sharing my slides. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask our 3 student ambassadors to just introduce themselves and just briefly share a little bit about what they are doing for their Gemstone research team. And then we can open everything up for questions from you all. Let's see, do we want to start? How about we start with Annette?
Hi, my name is Annette. I'm a sophomore public health science major and a Spanish minor, and I'm on a pre-PA track. I'm on Team Fungi in Gemstone, and so we are working on using fungal extracts, such as proteins and polysaccharides, to use as a sterilant against bacteria that forms on medical devices, like catheters and prosthetics and things like that.
Great,
Sorry. I'm a sophomore bioengineering student on Team Hemo, and we are looking for viable hemoglobin substitutes for ex vivo transport to basically help with the blood shortage that we have going on.
Hi, my name is Sohei. I'm a sophomore public health science major and French studies minor. In Gemstone, I'm on Team BMM, and currently we're investigating factors that influence maternal mortality rates in Prince George's County, and also looking at different perspectives like health literacy to sort of reduce the maternal mortality rate.
Great, thank you. And so, yeah, feel free to put your questions in the chat, and then we will answer them as they come in. So I already see we have a question. Who do the students pitch their research ideas to? How are the projects finalized, and how are the teams formed? So the students in their second semester and their first year during their GEMS 102 course, this is where they can come up with their ideas. They will write project sheets that will summarize their topics, and then they will actually do pitches to the other students in the class, as well as to Dr. Lovell and myself. So Dr. Lovell is the director of Gemstone, and then of course all of our teaching assistants who are there as well. And so the students are really pitching the ideas though to each other to try to get other students interested in their topics, because the key part about Gemstone is it is team research. So it is not just a research project by an individual. You really have to get a team of people excited about it. So you'll pitch it to the students, and then there's different rounds of voting where then, you know, we narrow down the topics until we have our final 14 or so teams, and then people rank which topic they want to be on, and we match everyone to the different teams, and then those are finalized the second half of spring semester, and then we start figuring out matching those teams with mentors. And then once they have their mentors, of course, the projects might adapt a little bit and change, and that process then happens into fall semester of your sophomore year as you're really writing your thesis proposal and getting ready to defend that.
Wait, okay. I guess we can start the first question I see, which is like how our research is funded. So there's something called launch at UMD. It's sort of like so in the month of November, there's launch in November, and there's also launch in the spring. And my team recently did launch last semester, and it's sort of like a fundraising opportunity for us to kind of talk to people that we know personally about our research and ask them to donate to our research. So, and there's also a competition that if you get the most donors, like 100 unique donors, you get like $750 additionally with what you've already raised. So my team was the one who won the contest. So we did get some money added to that. So it's basically, and Gemstone also has a fund that we can apply to for our research. So it's not just us raising the money. Gemstone already has some money for us, but we just have to sort of like apply for that.
Great. And I'll just chime in that there's also funding that comes from Gemstone and some other sources as well. So we really, and then some of the mentors actually have funding for their teams. It's a variety, and we just really work with all of the different options to make sure that the teams have funding that they need to work on their projects. Okay, so I'm going to jump back up. So we had a question that maybe the students can answer. Can the students describe their process of how they decided on their research project?
I can answer that one. So the process during the first fall semester, during your freshman fall semester, the class that you take, GEMS 100, places a lot of emphasis on what you want to do as a researcher and who you are. So a lot of people discover their interests and what they would like to research during that fall semester. And if you don't, that's totally okay. The way that I kind of discovered what I wanted to research on was probably a little bit unconventional. I was watching a documentary about fungi, and I saw that they had this really cool property of being able to treat cancer. And that is how I discovered what I wanted to research. But a lot of people just touch on what they're interested in, whether it's what they're majoring in or a hobby that they have, or just really anything. So your research project can be literally anything as long as it's feasible to do within the 4 years and with the resources that you have.
Great. So I see a question. Does the faculty mentor have control over the direction of the project, or do the students have most of the power? So definitely the original projects are being pitched. The ideas are being come up with by the students. And then we do ask them to think about who, are there mentors on campus that are there that could potentially guide such a project? We want to make sure that it's feasible within the realm of UMD. But then of course, once a mentor is matched to the team, we're trying to do that based off of who would bring the expertise for that team topic. But then of course, there's going to be some adjustment where maybe the background is slightly different and certain areas might need to tweak and change. So it depends. Some teams end up doing, exactly what they pitched their spring semester freshman year. And then sometimes, there might be adjustments and need to be a little bit flexible and work with that faculty, because certainly the teams aren't completely independent. They do, need that guidance of the expert, the faculty mentor. So it's kind of it's a team process, and that team involves the mentor's contributions as well.
Yeah, I think I can definitely add to that. My original team project was that we were going to find like a blood substitute for hemoglobin, and then, or that's what we all agreed to and why we formed our team. And then once we met our faculty advisor, he told us the work that he was doing in the lab and brought us in, and we kind of came into a more realistic expectation of what we can complete in 4 years. And now we're working with ex vivo transplant surgeries instead, and working with the blood circulation with that. So might not sound super different, but it's a completely different procedure from what we were thinking of doing in the original point. But our mentor has really just been there to listen to us and just guide us on what's feasible and what resources he can provide for us.
Okay, so a question says, a lot of the projects thus far have been primarily STEM-based. Do you ever get any arts, humanities projects? So certainly there are no limitations to what type of research projects we have. So we actually would love diversity in projects. There in the past, there actually have been literature-based projects and things like that. If you scroll back through on our website, you can look through the different teams from previous years and get an idea about that. And so really, we're open to a wide diversity of projects, and really, it's just what projects we end up with in a given year just depends on what that group of students are interested in. So what projects are they pitching? And then, obviously, it has to end up being a team. And so as long as there's a group of students who are going to be interested in that, then that topic will hopefully then make it through that voting process. And so, we welcome a wide diversity of topics for the research projects. Next question, maybe one of the students can answer. Do students have any difficulty balancing Gemstone classes and research with other courses and work?
I can also answer that. Yes, I would say the first 3 semesters, you'll have Gemstone courses, and that's like an allotted time where you have to actually go to class and stuff. And while you're making your team and learning about Gemstone and the expectations and all of that, now as a second semester sophomore, the time that we carve out for team meetings and then meetings with our faculty advisor is completely on my team schedule. So of the 8 people in my team, we decided that Sunday evenings is when we're going to meet and do these meetings and allot the time. And everything is more of on our own calendar. But I would say a lot of it is time management. Gemstone doesn't try to make anything hard to do or overwhelming, but it does take time that you have to allot to Gemstone. And I would also say that, like, since forming your team and everything, just talking and communicating with team members, when one of us has a big test that week, we might be like, hey, I'm not able to do as much work on this project coming up as I normally would. And that's totally fine. Everyone's a student and understands. So it's really just communicating with your team and doing time management.
I see a question that regarding graduating within 3 years instead of 4 years. So I'll answer that very quickly. So yes, you can graduate in 3 years. We basically have students who are in that situation. They do an early graduation agreement and they sign that with their team mentor and their team. And basically you then carry on and contribute to your team in the same way that you would if you were doing a full 4 years, and see through the contributions through that 4th year and do your thesis conference defense with the rest of your team. And then the citation is added after that fact. Let me see. How many hours per week do you typically work on your Gemstone project? Maybe one of the students can jump in on that one.
I can answer that. So we, like, as a second semester sophomore, we have 2 hours that we're meeting with all our team members. So we have a mentor meeting that runs for an hour, and then we have a team meeting that runs for an hour as well. So that's 2 hours already. Depending on the depth of your project and the different perspectives, I might decide to commit 2 other hours to my research. At this time, we're working on our thesis proposal, so we're committing more time, like our thesis proposal, like presentation. And since that's coming up in the next week, we are committing more time to it now, since it is like a group presentation and everything. But overall, I would say it depends on how committed you are to your research and how well you like task manage with the other members of your team. So not one person's doing all the work, but I would say you'd be looking at least 5 hours just to get everything in order.
Okay, so we have a couple of other, we had touched on the budget question, but someone else asked how the students' research projects are funded. So we mentioned a couple of those with Launch UMD, where you can raise money for your own research. Also, Gemstone has a couple of grants like the C grant and sustainability. So if the project's topics fall into those categories, there's money to be had from those sources. I think someone asked what the budget is for the research. That varies dramatically because some teams basically don't need any money to do their research if they're just on a computer, for example, and they don't need equipment for anything. And then some teams, you know, I mentioned the team that's studying beehive health, you know, there's fancy camera equipment that's involved in that. So they requested funding for that and are, you know, we're able to purchase those things. So it vastly varies. So it's hard to give a specific number for that. Let me see. Are there any restrictions on what the research topic can be? Only in the sense of, you know, it obviously has to be something that's feasible to be done as a team project in 4 years. And so oftentimes a lot of the projects that are pitched maybe initially are a lot bigger and broader, and then they're kind of narrowed down as, you know, some of the students have talked about, where then especially once you're with your mentor, you're maybe narrowing it down to figure out, well, what's actually feasible in 4 years, but no restrictions other than that. Okay, let's see. Are different groups able to research similar topics depending on which level the groups are at? Yeah, as long as it's a novel research area, you know, there could be similar topics that are going on. Obviously, it wouldn't be, you know, it wouldn't work for it to be the exact same topic as a team is already researching, an older team, you know, just the sense that because this really is about conducting novel research. So picking a topic area that someone else isn't already researching. But obviously some topics can be related. We have a couple of UAV projects that are going on, you know, so there's always, it's not like there aren't any overlap between the team's research topics. This is one for student ambassadors. Do students feel isolated from the general student population? What is the social experience of being in Gemstone?
I would say I do not feel isolated from the general student population being in Gemstone. The social experience, there are a lot. I mean, Gemstone has been doing a really, really good job of forming a Gemstone community. So there are a lot of events within Gemstone itself. I know like we have events like Valentine's, cookie decorating, just like really fun things coming up that get you connected with other students in Gemstone, but that doesn't mean that you feel isolated from the general student population. I would say Gemstone it kind of feels like a club that you join, or just like a student organization where you're still a part of the general student population, and then Gemstone is like a different community that you're also a part of. So personally, I do not feel isolated, and I love the entire social aspect of Gemstone.
I would agree with that. I think coming into an already made community is really nice, and a lot of people that are like, it was just very nice. There's a lot of fun activities, a lot of bonding things, but then you also get to meet people within your major and in your classes or whatever clubs you go to and stuff. So you have a bunch of people that are going through a similar research experience with you, and that are living right in Ellicott with you. And you might meet a lot of people that have classes with and stuff like that. And it's a great way to make friends, and you can get as involved in it as you want. Or you can have your research team and then have your whole other group of friends and people. So I think it's just a really great opportunity.
Okay, so we had a question. Do most Gemstone students live in the honors dorms? So the Gemstone students our dorm is Ellicott Hall, and certainly it's not required for first years to live in Ellicott. Obviously, we encourage it. And so I don't know the exact breakdown percentage of how many students live in Ellicott, but there are a good number of our first years and some second years that live in Ellicott Hall. Let's see, if you want to study abroad during the 4 years of Gemstone, would you be able to work on your project remotely? So yes, you are able to study abroad. We have, I think, 13 students who are abroad this spring. So how that works is that you sign a study abroad contract with your team mentor and your team. So this is kind of similar to the early graduation contract, and basically lay out expectations for what you're going to work on while you're abroad, how you're going to contribute to your team. And then a lot of, obviously, Zoom and things like that make that a lot easier these days. So our students who are abroad are able to actually still join in on their team meetings and their mentor meetings. They just make sure that they set that at a time that works for whatever time zone that they're in. So yes, that is definitely possible. We do ask that, you know, you only study abroad after you finished your first sequence of classes. So you wouldn't be able to study abroad your first year or your first semester of your sophomore year. Okay, let's see. Can students do individual research? So there'd be no restriction. Obviously, if you wanted to do independent student faculty research that's separate from Gemstone as well, you could definitely do that. Within Gemstone, though, for your Gemstone research, it is team research projects. I think, so this question says, I think it's for Annette, probably, because I think you pitched your idea for fungi. Can you describe how you convinced other people to join your research idea?
Sure. So like Dr. Lansford mentioned earlier, the entire process of picking a project is students pitch their project and then they go through rounds of voting. And before each round of voting, every student who pitches their project gives a little bit of a summary on what their project is and what they want to do with it. And I'm honestly not really sure why people liked my project, but after I kept pitching and I kept just telling people about my project, people were just interested in it. I'm not sure I did anything special to make people want to be on my project. I think it was just an interesting topic in general that made people want to join. But I would just say try to appeal to the masses, get people to join in on your project earlier and talk to people about it and why you think they should join and why you think it would be a successful project.
Okay, a question was, are the mentors typically tenured faculty? Yes, that is the most common. Do the teams work only with UMD faculty or can they connect with other experts in the field? So they do need to be within the UMD umbrella, but for example, Talia's mentor is at the medical school in Baltimore. And so, you know, it can be situations like that, although most of them are at UMD College Park. And
we do also connect with other professionals though, like for our upcoming thesis defense, we reach out to other professionals in the same field as our project. So we mainly work with our mentors, but we also connect with other people in the field.
We did have a question, what type of research can students at the business school do? I'd have to kind of look through some of the past research topics to give a better answer to this, but oftentimes, you know, a lot of the different topics maybe have other aspects to them that aren't the most obvious just from the name or the topic. And so oftentimes there's sub teams within the research team. So maybe there is a policy portion of the research project or, you know, something like that. And so oftentimes people in like a major like that might have something to contribute to a project that doesn't necessarily from the outside look like it's specifically within that discipline. Let me see. What are some examples of how students carry out their research? Is it common for students to have a lot of hands-on work? I think probably I'll let some of the students answer this too, but it varies, depends on the team. So obviously some of the teams are actually developing a prototype for something. So we have, for example, one of the teams is working on disability accessible scooters. So they actually might be developing a prototype for that, and so working to do that. Plenty of teams have a lab component. So for example, Talia's team will be in the lab with their mentor at the medical school doing things like that. For plenty of teams are doing surveys and will be reaching out and trying to get different people to respond to their surveys, and they'll be analyzing those. So there's a wide variety of different ways that they conduct their research. I don't know if any of the student ambassadors want to chime in on anything.
Yeah, so it definitely depends on the research that you're doing specifically. Like Dr. Lansberg said, if there's a lab component, then you will be in the lab. If you're a mixed methods type, if you're using mixed methods to conduct your research, then you might have the aspect where you're interacting with actual people, maybe having focus groups, conducting interviews, but also the statistical analysis part where you're probably just on your computer. So genuinely, it depends on what your team and your research is trying to achieve and how you go about that.
Great. Okay, let's see. What is the main reason a student would choose this program over all the others? I would say that it is if you're really excited about research and you're specifically excited about working with a team on an exciting research topic. I think that would be the reason why you would want to choose Gemstone over the other LLPs. Do most students get their first choice for the project? I'd say that is fairly common. It's obviously not guaranteed that you'll get your first choice, but as far as most of the students I know got their first choice. And first choice meaning obviously within the topics that are those final 14 topics that are going to be the teams for that cohort. You know, you might not get the topic that you originally pitched at the beginning of spring semester, your first year. You know, there might have been 100 other topics that were also pitched then. Let's see. If I don't get into Gemstone, can I transfer from another honors program after my first year? Because we do have a sequential set of courses that the students are doing, it is hard to transfer in to Gemstone. So that is not something that happens very often or at all. Let's see. That one was answered by Chantel. Are you expected to work over the summer on your research project? Is there time for internships? So I would say that a lot of the teams don't do a ton of research over the summers. Certainly some choose to do that, but plenty do not. And then, so there are plenty of time for internships. I know a lot of students who end up doing summer internships, you know, that are unrelated to what their Gemstone projects are on. Okay, let's see.
Do you want us to answer the two recent questions about free time and social life?
Sure, yeah, go ahead. Jump in on that.
Yeah. I didn't expect to start. Okay. Being in Gemstone in like the honor, I mean, of course it is a lot of work, and I think it genuinely depends on you and what you want to get involved in. I personally am involved in a lot, but I do make sure to like take the time for myself and also to hang out with my friends. And like UMD has a lot of things that are happening on campus that you can just be like, hey, do you want to go to this at this time? Or like, do you want to get dinner at the diner or something? So you definitely have to be intentional with your time and make sure that you're not neglecting your social life, because like you might study a lot, but then if you're just sitting there studying, you might be having like, there's some other things that you're neglecting. So definitely finding the balance is very important, and making sure that, you know, you're keeping your academics up to date, but also just not neglecting your social life, because that is not good.
I would also like to add that I think most of it honestly comes with just learning to with your schedule in college in general, and just that adjustment, because you're living in the place that you go to your classes and do school and eat and all that stuff. So it's just learning to differentiate between giving yourself that free time and when it's time to do homework and stuff. So it's really just up to you how much free time you allot yourself while still being able to get stuff done. And I honestly would say that your major is more determining of how much free time you have, more so than Gemstone is.
And wait, oh, I'm so sorry. I was gonna talk about the second question, and in terms of like the classes that you take in Gemstone. So when you first get like, if you when you're doing your preference form, don't forget to fill that out. But if you preference Gemstone and you get into Gemstone, your first semester of freshman year, you take Gems 100, which is the introduction to Gemstone, and you take that in the fall. I was a Gems 100 TA last semester, and it was really fun. And in that class, you learn about Gemstone and how to conduct research, but you also learn the ways you conduct research. And like, if you're doing like, okay, so you learn the ways to conduct research, but you also learn about like different perspectives in terms of ethics and feasibility, and just how exactly are you having community impactful research, like community engaged research. And at the end of GEMS 100, you have the project sheet, which is like a research idea that you have, that you carry into the spring semester, where you take GEMS 102 and 104. You take them both at the same time, and one is focused on team formation and really fleshing out your research ideas that you have. And then 104 is about like ethics. It's like science, technology, and ethics or something like that. And you learn a lot about conducting research in that class, and like IRB approval. And you get to talk to different faculty members who are in the different offices and how they can help you with your research. And the cool thing about some of the Gemstone classes is that they fulfill your gen ed requirements that you have to take as a UMD student. So UMD has like a set list of gen ed requirements that you have to take, and Gemstone fulfills at least 2 of them. They fulfill like an I series and then like a DSSP, which is really cool and really nice. And you can take less classes, but honestly, it genuinely depends on your major. And like Tali said, like it genuinely depends on your major and what requirements they have. Because if you're in a major that you have to take like more credits for, then overall you're going to be taking more credits, like more classes just in general.
And I'll just chime in on that. So for example, to follow up on what Sohei was saying, so GEMS 104 can count towards a gen ed education requirement. It's an I series course. And then, yeah, some of your later Gemstone courses as well can satisfy some gen ed courses. So in your sophomore year, the fall semester, it can satisfy 3 distributed studies credits in the scholarship and practice category. And then you can get some credit for your for the team thesis defense seminars that you do in later years too. Once you finish that series, you get a few more credits that go towards that scholarship and practice category. So luckily there is a little bit of overlap that then doesn't, even though it is 18 credits, it then can check off some other requirements that you have, gen ed requirements that you have as well. let's see, how are the Gemstone classes graded? So it's kind of a combination. So for example, for GEMS 102 and 104, which is what's happening right now in the spring for our first years, some of the assignments are graded by myself and by Dr. Lovell, and then some of the assignments are graded by our teaching assistants. So we have a group of really wonderful teaching assistants for both GEMS 100, GEMS 102, 104, and 202. We have students will volunteer and you can either do for credit or get paid to be a teaching assistant for those courses. And then there are discussion aspects of the different classes, and then the teaching assistants often help with grading some of those types of assignments, and then some of the bigger assignments are then graded by myself and by Dr. Lovell. I'm scrolling to see if I've missed anything. Yeah, so maybe could Sohei, Talia, and Annette share what's your greatest moment in Gemstone that you've experienced so far?
I would definitely say GEMS Camp. So GEMS Camp is it's basically a camp. It's like a 3-day camp that we have at the very beginning of the semester before everyone else moves in. And it's like somewhere in Maryland, I can't remember it, Anne Arundel County, maybe. It's this not resort type of, think about like a camp when you watch like a movie. Oh yes, it will require early move-in, but think about when you're watching movies and they have like summer camp, and then you go to that camp for 3 days, and it's basically like your introduction to Gemstone, right? So I went to GEMS camp when I was a freshman. So like I got the chance to move in early. It was very hot, but I moved in and I went to GEMS camp and I had a lot of fun there. So I decided I want to be on the committee that runs GEMS camp. So I joined the committee and we planned GEMS camp for the current freshmen in Gemstone. And it was honestly really fun getting to plan out the activities that Gemstone freshmen who decide to go to GEMS camp do. And I proposed we do karaoke, and a lot of people like actually participated, which was really nice. And we have a lot of activities that sort of have the ideals of Gemstone in terms of teamwork and just collaboration, which is extremely important. But you also just have the fun aspect of getting to talk to other like upperclassmen who act as the camp leaders for GEMS camp. And it really gave me the opportunity to just talk to different freshmen, and I still see some of them around, and it's like, oh my God, hi, so you're at GEMS camp. And we recently had our applications for steering committees, and some people who applied were like, oh, I really enjoy GEMS camp, which is why I wanted to apply. So for me personally, it's definitely GEMS camp.
I would say my greatest moment has just been, in general, getting to be involved with Gemstone and Gemstone Leadership Council. So you have so many opportunities as a Gemstone student. You can be a Connect mentor, a TA, like Isohe was saying, TAing is super, super fun because you can talk to people who used to be in your position and like show them how you did things and help them on their way and help them figure out college. And just all of the involvement that you can do is so, so cool. And it's an opportunity that you wouldn't get anywhere else.
I'm sorry, I'm having
a fun memory too, Talia. It doesn't have to be the greatest moment, but fun memory from Gemstone.
I would say the night we did a movie night, and there was like a really big bag of popcorn, like 4 feet tall bag of popcorn, and we all just did a movie night and did like arts and crafts. I still think those are hanging on my wall right now. It was just really fun. I met people in the program I hadn't talked to before, and now I hang out with them regularly. So I really enjoy that. Just like things like that are so common in Gemstone, which I love.
I think this last question is the program primarily outdoor activities. I think that's probably referring to camp. Some of the activities are at camp or outdoors, and then some are indoors. I don't know if, Sohae, do you want to chime in on that one?
Yeah, so while at camp, we do have outdoor activities, but also we have indoor activities. It's not all just standing outside and in the hot sun because it's really hot at the camp. But it's just a chance for you because college is really confusing, and especially when you feel like you don't know anyone at all. So really getting the opportunity to meet other freshmen when you just come on campus and they're all in the same program as you, and you're probably going to be living in the same dorm. So that's just really the ideals of Gems Camp. But in general, no, it's not outdoors all the time, but there are some other activities.
Okay, I think that that's all the questions that I'm seeing.
Right on time.
Oh, great.
So we're about to wrap up now. Thank you so much, guys, for coming out tonight to learn more about Gemstone. We hope that you got all your questions answered. Thank you so much for our ambassadors for coming out. As always, you guys are great.